My name is Melissa Shore, and I'm an assistant editor at the Boston Globe magazine. And I recently wrote an article called The Daycare Squeeze, which was published in the December 12th issue, which looked at the high cost of daycare expenses in Massachusetts.
I'm the Senior Associate Director in the Office of Research, Strategy and Development. My 4-year-old, she's 4 going on 40. I work for the Office of Research Compliance. Anna is into pretty much anything she can get her hands on.
I'm the Administrative Manager at the Lab for Translational Research.
I am a research fellow in the Department of Cell Biology.
My role is to help other scientists do the work that they can.
We have one child, which is now almost 2, and we're just expecting another child coming in a couple of months.
I work as a financial associate with IID.
I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son.
I am an infectious disease researcher. Sophia is into creating her own dance videos.
I'm assistant professor of environmental health and epidemiology. My kids are great. What else can I say?
Mornings are always late.
I guess there's no such thing as a typical morning.
Our daughter has cerebral palsy, and so part of what we do is stretching and therapy with her in the mornings.
They change their mind about clothes.
He does his best to sort of take his clothes off as we're trying to put them on.
Ideally, they're supposed to take a school bus to school.
We walk with stroller to the daycare.
And walk to the lab.
You know, just always getting here, I think, on time by the skin of my teeth.
There's a squeeze going on all sides of the equation. So parents are being squeezed by the cost, the centers are being squeezed because they're not super profitable, and the people who work in the daycare centers are being squeezed because they're being paid among the lowest end of the rung of the ladder, really.
Finding a daycare here in the Boston is definitely not an easy thing.
It's definitely fragmented and hard.
And we got spots, but basically when it came to the should we accept or not, it was basically impossible to pay like over $2,000 per month.
Across the nation, parents are paying much more from their salaries than they really can afford to.
It's fairly expensive to have kids. Childcare is expensive anyway.
We pay more than I make.
The cost of daycare is definitely a consideration.
You know, on the flip side of that is I know that providers aren't paid well enough.
The good news is that the reason we have such a high cost are great reasons. Our state has really strict standards for our child care facilities.
Experience of the providers, cleanliness of the center, responsiveness when you call and ask questions.
So at the end of the day, that raises their cost to parents. And I think what ends up happening is most people realize they can't afford that. So maybe you use a little bit of a babysitter and you use a little bit of a neighbor or a relative. One problem with putting together many different moving parts is it can just get incredibly complicated if something goes wrong.
Definitely causes stress when there's a wrench in the plans.
It is a little challenging. We have to juggle things.
It always falls to me to be the backup.
Most of the times when my son is sick, I'll stay home to watch him.
If Sophia's sick, I miss work that day.
Essential.
Frustrating?
It's very expensive.
Complicated.
Financial burden.
It becomes a problem institution-wide. If the majority of your workers are dealing with these family issues and their work is going to get affected by it, then you as an employer need to be there for them and support them. Otherwise, you're either going to not get the most out of your workers or you're going to lose them.
Before I had kids, the main thing I did was work like 12 hours a day.
I just don't have the time or the flexibility to spend an hour chatting with my coworkers about their experiments.
It's not possible most of the time to limit your work from 9 to 5.
I'm not really giving my 100% in a daily basis.
I think that once you become a parent, your mind is never purely on your work anymore, that you're always a little bit in charge and responsible for thinking about others and juggling those responsibilities at home even while you're at the office.
You always have that clock in your head that, okay, I've got to drop her off. And once I drop my daughter off, it's trying to make as much of the day as I can before around 4 o'clock, where I start switching back into mommy mode.
I think that within an institution, the people are the work, and if they're hindered in their work, then the institution as a whole loses. Society has come up with a few things that might help parents. There is some federal tax subsidies. There are sometimes scholarships available. There are some employers do offer a little bit of pre-tax money that you can use for your childcare, but unfortunately those are all just nibbling around the edges.
It puts a dent. I'm definitely grateful for any help that I can get, but will I be purchasing a house anytime soon? No.
There really hasn't been a push in our society for some major overhaul of childcare.
I do find the Harvard Medical School is much more flexible and open and really geared towards parents.
My previous employer, before I came to Harvard, there was actually a pretty strong anti-family culture. If you keep trying to separate your parent hat from your career hat, then you don't get the opportunity to use the new skills that you've developed as a parent in your career.
One expert said to me when I was reporting this story that, look, we pay for higher ed, we subsidize it as a nation. And for elementary school, we also subsidize public education. But for this period of life, when children are 0 to 5 and are not in any institution yet, we leave parents on their own.
Getting the word out about the services that are already available, I think, is probably a good first step.
I have some friends that live in Europe and they get like a whole year off.
That, to me, if your country has its priorities straight, makes a lot more sense.
I would say subsidization of childcare.
And even government-run childcare.
If I don't have good quality childcare that I can afford, then I'm not going to be productive at work.
Managers need to be aware of balance.
The fact that not everyone is working 80 hours a week and that's okay.
I think it really supports the family and it gives you a better worker.
There's got to be a better way.